Once you've set up your InDesign document, then comes the time to convert your idea into the actual practice in InDesign. I would always start with a sketch, and what I'm going to show you in this video is how I convert that sketch into a page layout across a double page spread. I'm going to set up paragraph and character styles. I'll tell you why, and then what we can do is show you how then you can apply that across the subsequent pages to make the flow of your design and that actual design process of completing the rest of the pages a little bit more easier. In InDesign, I've set up a document using master pages and also set in certain elements on the layers. So if I just double click here and look at my master pages, you can see that I've got a footer in here and got the name of my made up magazine. And if I then show you the layers, that all these elements are on the layer that is at the top. So this means then that if I put any elements on the page that go over where the footer is, that the elements in the footer will appear. I've also set it up with 12 columns and 12 rows, and I'm going to use that then as the basis to build my document from. I've just set up an 8-page document at the moment. Whenever you've got a multi-page document, it needs to be divisible by 4. So I've just created 8, and I've now got my double page spread basically that is the start, and then I'll do the second spread as well. Other files I've got is just a really quick rough sketch to sort of show what I'm going to try and achieve. So I've got an image here. The premise for this article is it's an article about architecture in Melbourne. So I'm going to have my title here. I've got a block or maybe 2. I'll decide when I'm laying it out how that looks. And then a couple of blocks of text here. A pull quote over to the right. And then on the second spread, again, another image, a little bit smaller this time, and then a little bit more room for some text, and then another pull quote over on this side. Looking at this layout and knowing that I've set it up with 12 columns, I'm probably going to do 8 columns here for the image and then leave 4 at the side here, which means on this article as well I can leave 4 blank. And then all my text columns will be 4 columns wide, and then it'll be asymmetric, but this will also have 4 columns blank down this side. So to jump back into InDesign, just to show you that, then you see I've got 12 columns, so I'm basically going to leave probably these 8 blank, put my little block of text there, 2 blocks of text across the next 4, and then the final one will be blank, and then the image is basically going to come all the way across here. I've got some images that I've decided I'm going to use. They're not my images, they're just ones I've bought from stock libraries. And then I've also got some body text as well, which I'm going to use for the actual article. So there's a few different ways I can start this. What I might do is just start off by dropping the image in, and I'm going to keep jumping back to my layout just to check that I'm kind of doing everything the right way as per my sketch. Now I've just started to draw this my image box now, but trying to be observant, I can see that it's actually drawing it on the footer layer. So even though I've set up all these elements in the footer on that top layer, because it's the last layer I used, InDesign remembers that, so it's actually started to draw on that layer. So what I could do is just lock that off, and that means then that it's not going to start to use that layer. If it does happen and you've got elements on there, just click on the little square and drag that down, and then that'll take that off the layer, and then I can lock it off, and then I'm good to go. I'm going to keep that selected, come up to File and Place, and then that should now find my image. This is the one that I'm going to use for the opening double page spread. And it's giving me a couple of options here because I've been doing something tricky in a previous file. Again, as I've mentioned, that InDesign and Illustrator a lot of the time remembers the last thing you did. I've got show options on here. That's because I was actually placing multi-page InDesign documents into another InDesign document. And if you go show import options, you can then choose which page you're going to place. And if you're doing it with a multi-page PDF, you can do the same thing. So not a bad little thing to know that exists. I'm going to click open now, and then that's just going to place that image in there. So as I mentioned before, I think I'm going to be doing this as a rule of thirds. So I'm going to spend a lot of time counting up to 4. So if I count back 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, that means that this image needs to come to here, and then I'm going to count up 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that one, lucky enough, has dropped on there. I'm going to zoom into the top corner just to make sure I'm going out to the bleed area, and then I'm going to close my layers. I don't really need that anymore, and I'm now just going to scale the image. Now if I press shift, that means I can drag the image bigger and move it around. And because I placed it, the image is selected. If I've deselected it and I want to start to move it around again, there's a couple of ways to do that. You can click on the target in the center. So if you hover over an image, it brings up the target in the center. I can click on that, and it will then give me the brown or orange line there. You can see is the actual image, which means I can move it around. And then if I'm going to make it bigger, I press shift to constrain it. If I want to make everything bigger but still maintain the proportions, and if I press command or control if you're on a PC and shift and then click and drag, it will make everything bigger. Now I've already kind of gone in and set my image box at the size that I want it. I find that's easier, so that's the way I work. And so I'll make the image box the size that I want, and then I can start to look at where am I going to crop this image, how much of it do I want to see. I've got the join in the page is running here, but there's nothing really that important there that I'm going to be chopping out. I don't want to put it too high because I really don't want to be seeing too much of the Yara. If you hit the W key, that will turn off all of your guides and construction in your document. So it's a good way to kind of check on your layout and how that's looking. And again, I can kind of bring this around, tuck this down. I am still chopping off a little bit of the top of that building. So if I make everything smaller, it means I can bring it down, get more bridge, or just chop off a little bit of the bottom of the bridge so it's obvious it's a bridge. Need to be aware as well that I've got bleed to allow for as well. So ideally I want to sort of see the bottom of the bridge here and the top of the antenna on that building there. So if we say, okay, well I'm all right with that for the time being, you know what it's like, you can push pixels around all day, but sometimes you just need to make a decision. So I'm just going to make that decision now. I'm going to copy the title and just jump back to my InDesign document. So to insert text, I just go up to the type tool and click and drag, and I'm going to paste that in. Nice to know even with the new versions it still gives you text at 9.9% black. And now I'm going to choose my typeface. So again, I'm going to be jumping in between being able to see the grid and not. I'm going to right align this text because I think it's probably going to be better to fit my layout. Again, if I just jump over to my sketch, I've kind of got the text, the title and the text aligning, so I can just jump between the two and typeset like that. I'm not going to use Minion Pro. So I'm going to use a typeface called Red Hat, and I'm going to make the title bold. That's interesting, that's misbehaving. Maybe let's just go with Helvetica, and then we can choose which one I want to go with. I might just go, we'll scroll down and let's try light just for the sake of it. We'll go the other way. We'll make the header bigger, but use a lighter typeface rather than going bold. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit it on this, the text box, I'm going to sit on this line here, and then I'm just going to grab the center anchor point there and bring it down. Now I'm going to line the text up on this guide here, and I can do that because I have my control panel open. So if you don't have that open, go up to Window and come down to Control, and then in here I can actually align the text vertically within the text box. So if I click on this one here, then I'm lining it up on the bottom, and if I make it bigger, it means it's going to grow from the bottom, and because it's right aligned, it's going to grow from the bottom right corner. I prefer the optical view rather than metric. Optical view allows for the shape of the letters as well as the actual width of them. And then I'm going to put -10 in for my type tracking, just because that's my preferred setting. And I can make this text box now a little bit smaller, just so you've not got giant text boxes everywhere. I'm probably going to make this a little bit bigger later, so I might just go to about there, but I don't want to make it too huge. Okay, so I'm going to come back now and grab the rest of the text, and I'm just going to scroll all the way through, and Command C just to copy that. And then the way I work is I'm just going to draw myself a text box across 4 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to paste all of that text in there, and it's now going to give me that. So I'm just going to go up. It's one of the things, it does remember the last things you use, so sometimes it's quite useful that you can just go up to the top. Now you can't really see what it's doing at the moment. Again, it seems to be this thing with InDesign that it brings it in at 9% of black. So I'm just going to do a little bit of typesetting now, just on this. So I'm going to make it 9 point. I'm going to have 13 point lead in, optical. And then the next thing I'm going to do is go to my paragraphs. I'm going to turn off hyphenation, and I'm going to put a couple of millimeters of paragraph space in there for space after. Now you can't really see a lot of that, but because I'm really only at the moment thinking about this first block of type. On my original sketch, I had it going across 2 columns. So I might just try that. I think my idea might have been a bit wrong, because I think it's probably going to look better with just the one. But this is a good chance to show you another thing you can do, because I can select multiple columns, and then I'm going to match the gutter in the text to the gutter in the layout, in the page layout, and that was 4 millimeters. And then if I just come down here to this little plus symbol and click there, I can then do the same. Just grab that block of text. Now I'm just going to zoom in just to make sure that I am bang on my grid. And then again, I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to set 2 columns, and I'm going to make the gutter 4 millimeters between them. And then on this page, I'm just going to click and drag that down. So I've just basically put in the rest of the text onto the next couple of pages, and I've got a few more. So just to make it run on, and I just kind of draw this. You can actually set it to scroll the text and it will flow it onto all the next pages. But if you use margins in the way that I do, it will actually set them, the text, each column. And I want the flexibility in my layout. So for the slight inconvenience of having to draw a lot of text boxes, I prefer it this way when I'm setting it up. Just because it means that I've got my flexibility that I'm looking for when I'm designing my layout. So I've now got this text. If I double click on it and go Command A, I can then come to paragraph styles. I have all my preset, all the windows that I use a lot already open, and I've saved that workspace. But if you don't have that open, come up to Type, Tools, and Character and Paragraph are in here. And then if you want styles, you come to Styles, and you can open Paragraph Style here. I had it open, so it's just going to close it off. Now, if I click on the little hamburger and go New Paragraph Style, it remembers, because I've got this selected, it knows exactly what I've typeset in here. So I can then call this body copy. And I do it now with everything selected, just to save a little bit of time, so that all of this text now is all highlighted, and therefore all of that text is going to become the body copy style. Unfortunately, when you flow text boxes from one to the next, you can't actually go and select all of the type. You have to actually do it manually. So if you do just double click and then go Control A, that is going to select everything. And then I'm just going to highlight that I want all this to be body copy. So for me, it's just a little bit quicker that way to actually set it up and then to make everything body copy, because that's the most popular style I'm going to use. And then what I can do is I can think about, do I want a title? Do I want a quote, a pull quote style, and things like that. So I will set those up later. Now, if I want to have a subhead for this text here, again, just the breaks in the text, I'm kind of looking at that going, yeah, I think maybe it would be better if that's up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a soft return in. So if you press the Shift key and hit return, then what that's going to do is give you a soft, what we call a soft return. And actually what I want to do for this one is I want to do a hard return and knock it up to the next line. So then it should say the next column there. So a soft return is if I want to get rid of the word by and bring that down to the next line, press Shift and hit return, and that's going to bring that down to the next line. So you've got a couple of options there when you get into your typesetting. Now I'm thinking that it's probably not going to look so great with just that block of text there and then this on the next column. So I might go back to my other idea of just having one column in here, and I'll edit that later, but I'll show you how that's going to work once I've typeset my subhead. So I'm just going to make a subhead here. So I'm just going to highlight it, and I'm going to design it first. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to make it bold, for instance. So I'm just going to come down here and select bold. And when I go to my paragraphs, you can see I put 2 millimeters paragraph spacing in. Now I think that I want to have that text a little bit nearer to the block of text that's following. At the moment you can't really see it because it's right at the top, but if I have that text in a whole block of type, then what's going to happen is that if I'll just do an undo. So let me just do a couple of undos there. I'm just going to undo my knocking it round to the next column. You can see here that where it all began, my subhead, is sitting in the middle in between the first paragraph and the second. So by double clicking on it and taking that paragraph space out behind the subhead, I got my 2mm paragraph space after a block of text, and then my subhead is nearer to the following block of text. So that's what any subsequent blocks of text and subheads will look like. And I'm just going to press the function key and hit return again, just to push that across onto the next page. If you've got a full-size keyboard, you can just hit enter and that will do that for you. And then you can see now that my text is kind of flowing on from one to the next. Now, a lot of magazines, what they do is they would have the all of the text lines at the bottom of the page. If you want to do that, then again you can just go up to your align tool and then just click it here and it's going to pull that down. I'd say if you're doing that, then 2mm of paragraph space is a bit much in your body text. But now it's selected, you can just go into body copy and maybe knock that back down to 1. I'm just going to move it out of the way so you can see everything just moves just that little bit, and you can see how it compensates. I don't do a lot of setting on text grids. You can do that and click here and it'll align to your grid. I'd like to see, I think for me it feels a little bit more contemporary, that you've got a little bit of space in between each paragraph. Now if I'm going to do the same with this one, see the issue now is that, see, it's pulling this one out and it looks odd that way. So that would be my reason for not doing this. I'm okay with the ragged edges across the bottom. I do a lot more brochure work than magazine, so for me it's okay to kind of have a ragged base across all your blocks of text. I do think that now when we look at that, I'd rather this be more asymmetric, so I'm just going to turn it back down to one column, hit the W key, and then come in. So I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4 columns there. So now I've got my block of text here for the start, and then this text flows on. So my subhead is over here at the top of the next column, and I might now just make my text for my title just a little bit bigger. I'm going to take out my 0Ms, that's light. Can I go even lighter? I might go ultra light and maybe a little bit bigger. Again, just to kind of give me that. So allow it spidering a little bit, but that might just be on screen because it's so light. Another thing I do, and I'm not a big fan of black text, so if I go to my body copy, again this shows the benefit of having a paragraph style, because I can come in here now, and if I take out 20% of the color, just hit tab, you can see that it'll do that to everything. And it's actually done it here to the subhead, and I haven't actually created a style yet, but it just thinks at the moment it's body copy that's been changed, which is why you get the little plus symbol. So what I should do before I do too many more subheads is to actually create a style for that. So let's do that now. So go paragraph style, and I'm going to call it subhead. And you can see here that it gives me the option of going no paragraph style, or I can base it on body copy. So that means then if we choose to put the text back to black, because the text is the same color, anything that is common between body copy and subhead, it will change that if I make that change. So let's just say I'm going to make my subhead a little bit bigger. I'm just going to click OK. It still thinks it's body copy, and then I click subhead, and you can see there it made it a little bit bigger because it was then basically adopting that subhead style. Now I think that's probably too big. It's bugging me that it's right there at the top of the column actually, because it doesn't look so great. in that position, but sometimes there's not a lot you can do about the text. I might actually maybe make this a bold and just change it up so that it one takes up a little bit more room, but two has a little bit more impact. Then again, I can just make sure some of it is selected. Come into here, go new paragraph style. I'm going to call it bold intro. And again, I'm going to keep it based on body copy so that if I make any amendments to it, it will change all of it. And then just come in here and make that bold intro. And you see there, I just clicked on subhead. What I like to do is I prefer to actually have them kind of in order of size. It might sound a little bit anal, but it's kind of, I know that one is bigger than that one's the same size, but it's bolder, so technically I'm looking at that saying it's bigger. And at least now I've kind of got my introduction. I try to keep the columns the same width on everything throughout the article as well, just so that then that gives me something that's a bit more consistent. Now the title's bugging me at the moment, so I'm just going to try something. I'm just going to drag that text box up to there, and I'm just going to align it in the center just to see what that does. Really what I should do is bring that down there, so then it is sitting in the middle of that space. So I'm actually just using the size of the text box to do my alignment. I don't need to do any maths. I think that probably looks a little bit better. And like I say, it's the only time it's in there. So I'm just going to space that out a bit. And I don't need to create a paragraph style for that because it's the only place where it appears. Now on my sketch, I have a pull quote over on the right here. So what I'm going to do is just scroll down to my text, and I'm going to steal a quote. So let's go with this one here. This might be a little bit long, but I can probably shorten it. I'm just going to copy that. So a pull quote is used to kind of draw people on to make them want to keep reading. So it isn't usually part of the text. So I'm just going to pull that, copy that out and place it in here. And then I'm going to use all of the column widths. Again, I'm going to line this one down at the bottom. So as I design it, it's going to build out from this bottom corner. So I'm going to make it bold and italic. I'm going to make it bigger. I'm going to add some leading into there. And I think what I might try and do is I'll make it a different color. Now it's an RGB image. I should really convert it to CMYK, but I'm going to sample a bit of color from that sky and then just make a new color swatch. You can see here it's coming as RGB because it's an RGB image, so I'm just going to just adjust that, and I'm going to call it sky blue because it actually is, and then I'm just going to OK that. And then I can select the type tool up here and come down, and I've got the pull quote over to the right there. Maybe not the greatest color. I can adjust that later on. Now I'm going to look at putting some quotation marks in there. Now I do it let's say the old-fashioned way. So I use Option and square bracket, and then Option Shift and square bracket, and then what I'm going to do is going to press Command and Option, and I'm just going to turn that back in using the arrow key now. So press Command and Option, and then the left arrow is going to bring those quotation marks back in. I do actually do some work with a client that has a lot of products that have got measurements, and they have clients that use imperial, so they use inches. And so I have the keyboard viewer up here, and this actually shows you, if you press the keys, if I press option, it shows you what you get with option. That's your standard keyboard. You press option and shift, it shows you all of the keyboard shortcuts that you have. So if you want to be able to see that, and also if you're doing work where you need to turn off the typographer's quotes, which you can do in InDesign, I'll just quickly sort of jump to one side and show you how to do that. So if you want to bring on your keyboard viewer, come up to System Settings, scroll down on the left to Keyboard, and then with text input here, just click Edit, and you can see up here it says Show Input Menu in Menu Bar. So if that's where it is. If I turn that off, it disappears. I turn it back on, and it reappears. So that's where the keyboard viewer is. In the preferences in general, you can select under type, use typographer's quotes, and so turn that on and off. And so generally I would have that turned off, but InDesign has just updated itself, and so there's a few things that have reset. So I would normally have that turned off. So then what I can do is, if I type in and do an inch mark, and those are the quotation marks. So this here is a prime. So if you saw 12 inches, then that is correct. And if you saw that, that's technically not correct. So that is, if you have the turn quotation marks on, it will override and will always give you typographer's quotes. If you're doing anything with televisions or anything that's kind of measured in inches, then you'll need that turned on. And basically that's just shift and the quote mark, which is the one to the left of the return key, and that'll give you inches. Anyway, I digress. So that is kind of how to do your quotes. So if I then jump on to the next page, I'm going to come back to my sketch and just have a quick look at that. Got 4 empty columns here, then 8, and then 4. And looking at that, it's probably coming down maybe 2/3 of the page. So I'm just going to just push that text down a bit. You can see everything just kind of moves around. Might as well put it in the right place so that it's going across the right number of columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 4 rows. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That can come up to there. 4 rows. And I'm going to leave this one coming up here because I want to do a text wrap on this one just to show you how to do that. So I'm just going to leave that 1, 2, 3, 4, and then zoom in, and it's bang on. So that's pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is draw an image box, and I'm going to come over here and just drop my image box in at what I think is about-ish the right size, and then file and place my image. And I think I'm going to use this one with the tram. Now because show input options is off, it'll just place that straight in. Of course it places it in, it's massive, so you can use a couple of options for this one. A nice tricky little one is if you come up to object and fitting, and you can say fit frame or fit content proportionally or fit frame proportionally. That means I'm going to actually fit it all into this frame that I've got. You can see now that it's kind of got the width because that was the first dimension it ran out of. And then I can look to sort of position that within here, and then if I just scale it up a little bit, press Option and Shift, it'll scale it from the middle. So I'm going for that sort of nice view of a Melbourne street with a tram and lots of skyscrapers in the background. Then I'm just going to bring this across to here. So now my image box is about the right kind of place. So quickly now I can just do the setting on these columns. So I'm going to go to 2 columns, and I'm going to get rid of the 4.233 and make the gutter match my gutter that I've got for the document. Now, if I move this out of the way, you can see I'm actually obliterating some of my text. So I'm going to come up to here, come down to text wrap. I click this one here, which gives me a text wrap. And then down here, I can actually push the image further away. So I only really need to look at doing it down here. So with the chain selected, it will give me 4mm all the way around. It shouldn't have any effect on the right because my 2 columns are already set with a 4mm gutter. And what it's going to do is it's just going to push the text down here on this left-hand column. So you can see quite quickly now that that has set that. I don't have any, I've got one subheading here, which is horrible because it's right at the bottom of the page there. So what I'm actually going to do is, again, I'm just going to force that up to the next start of a page, because you don't really want to have a subhead kind of so low down. And then what I'm going to do is just push that up there a little bit. Of course, now because I put that return in, it's moved everything along a little bit, so just delete that. And that will push everything across there. I've got one error, but I'm thinking that just means I've got overset text here. So if I was continuing on with the article, then obviously I could do that. I'm just going to look in here, and I'm just going to grab that and make that my next pull quote for the next page, which I think according to my sketch was on this left hand side. Yep, so I'm just going to drop my text in here. Now then, because I am doing this slightly differently, what I'm going to do is this text here, I'm actually going to right align it. So I'm going to create my pull quote here. So you can see I've got the little plus symbol because it thinks it's body copy and I've changed it. I'm just going to highlight a little bit of it because I've kerned that type in there with the quotation mark. It's actually going to affect my paragraph style. So I probably was a bit premature in doing that. So I'm just going to come in here and go new paragraph style and call it pull quote left, which basically means it's the left aligned pull quote. I'm going to make it not copy any style. Okay, and I'm just going to, if I swipe across all of this, you'll see when I select it that it's actually going to push the quotation marks back out again. So I'm going to go clear overrides. You can see now that that quote came out again, so I would need to kind of push that back in. You can see now it's left with a plus. If I highlight anything else, the little plus symbol goes away, so you can actually see that it's just in here where I've done my kerning is where the error is. I would call it an error or an override. So now I've done that typesetting, I can just use the fact that I've created a paragraph style and click on here. And again, it's automatically going to pick the style, but it's left aligning it. So I'm going to put a full stop, put a quote in there to make that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm now going to right align it and then come back into my paragraph styles and make a new style. And I'm going to call it pull quote right. and it's based on the pull quote left. So when I OK that, I click that, you can see now that it has right aligned it, and I've now got my two individual quotes. And if I was to put another quote in there, I can make that whatever. So if I now decide that I want to change this color, so I'm just going to go into my pull quote and I'm going to edit this color. I can actually just come into the colors, double click sky blue. So we just make it a bit more intense, and I'm just going to click preview, and you can see here it's changing that color. So as I make it a little bit more intense, it will do that, and you can see it's doing it on the right aligned one. So that is because that is based on the left aligned. So as I edit one, it's editing the other. Now I could choose to maybe, let's say I want to change the subhead. I'm just going to make sure all my text is deselected. I'm going to click the subhead and go to character color. And I'm just going to scroll down, and I'm going to make that blue. Again, you can see it changes that, and then even though I made that 100%, it will then change that. So I'm going to use that blue then as my sort of highlight color, let's say. So you can see there quite quickly that I was quite slow and methodical talking you through the layout and how I'm doing it, but really quite quickly, the first page took a little while. I'm setting my styles, but then by the time I get to the second page, it's much quicker. And then the next pages will be just as quick as this one, if not quicker, because again, I've set more of my styles. And then again, you just got the odd little thing to come in. Now again, maybe I can look at my actual ragged edges on this one. It's a bit horrible with that up there. Much prefer it. Oh no, it's all horrible. So again, you get into this world of doing your looking at your ragged edges. Again, even up here, we've got some issues that we would need to look at. So that's how I set up my pages. I find it's a way that works well for me, but it might not work well for everyone. Check out the way other people do it, and what you can do is you can pick the best bits and apply those into your way of working. You want something that's going to work well for you, that allows you to work efficiently. Hopefully some of what I've shown you will help you, and you can apply that into your design skills.